have an epidemic of neurobehavioral disorders like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and they're increasing at an alarming rate. Autism 10 years ago was known as a rare disorder that was diagnosed approximately 1 in 10,000 children in the United States. It's believed that in the United States it's probably now actually less than 1 in 50. And although that rise is alarming with autism, ADHD is actually the leading childhood disorder in the world of any kind. It is the #1 reason why a child will be medicated. And worldwide use of stimulant medication for ADHD has tripled since 1993.
Well, I say that ignorance is not the way to go, because there's an epidemic out there, and ignorance is not, we don't have time for ignorance. You know, you people better get back, get on and understand that there are programs out there, okay, that you don't have to use drugs for, that you can just, come and have your child try. Go to a lecture, see what this is all about, open your mind a little, because it's time.
Okay, beautiful, okay. I had a parent contact me and say, can you help my son? And turns out that he was a boy with autism that had been diagnosed with what we call PDD. He was 3.5 years old, had not spoken a word his whole life. And the parents came in, and I remember to this day sitting there at the desk with them and tears in their eyes telling me how they were told by a professional that there was no hope and that the best they could hope for was that their son would be in an institution someday, or worse. I started working with Daniel, and within 3 weeks his mom came in, again with tears in her eyes, but this time it was tears of joy because Daniel had spoken his first words spontaneously. And they had tried many things before. So he had said mom and dad, of course, which was incredible to them. He had spoken some of the names of the siblings, and it was just an amazing moment. And it impacted me in a way that nothing that I had done in my professional career had impacted me like. To have a child that couldn't speak. I don't think there's any greater miracle than that.
Brain Balance Centers are centers that are located throughout the nation. It's an after-school program in which we work with children with all learning disabilities, from dyslexia, Tourette's, ADHD, and autism.
Any parent that I come into contact with now that has a child with an issue of any kind, recommend the program to. I have stopped in supermarkets and at karate lessons. Whenever I hear of somebody who's got an issue, whether it be ADHD, autism, Asperger's, dyslexia, whatever it may be.
Go ahead, go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Dr. Melillo's concept is brand new, cutting edge. The science on which it is based has at least a 35-year history underneath it.
I needed to understand what was actually happening in the brain of these children, and what I found very frustrating as a parent was that I went to people that were so-called professionals, and they just looked at me and said, nobody knows. Or they would say something like, it's a biochemical imbalance, it's genetic, and there's nothing you can do about it. Neither one of those answers really satisfied me with my knowledge base, so I realized at that point it was because they just didn't know, and I needed to do my own research. So I spent many years really compiling that research, which eventually found its way into a book called Neurobehavioral Disorders of Childhood from an Evolutionary Perspective, which was my first textbook. And in that I laid the groundwork of the theory. And the main problem is what we call a functional disconnection, which means that areas of the brain are not communicating, that they're just not in sync with one another, that they can't share information because they have a different processing speed. And the importance of that as well is that what we see is that there is nothing broken in the brain of these children. There is no pathology. There's no damage that we can see. That's one of the things that stands out in these children, that when MRIs are done, we don't see anything. So what's the problem? The problem is a functional problem. It's not a problem where there's a damage in an area of the brain. The problem is poor communication between areas of the brain. So what we know is that we can restore that, we can change that, we can improve that through various types of exercises and activities. Plasticity means that the brain is moldable, that it's pliable, just like plastic. And neuroplasticity means that the brain can change. And that's basically the definition, that the brain can physically and chemically change based on stimulation and training. But it has to be utilized with very specific and defined principles. It has to be done in a way that is repetitive. It needs to be individualized to the child. It needs to be done in a way that's going to be progressively challenging. It has to be done with precise timing and with specific stimuli. It's about specifically stimulating the brain and doing it in a way that then stimulates growth and development in a particular area of the brain, so that the brain will literally become faster. Areas of the brain will become faster and speed up to catch up to other areas of their brain that have already been faster, and that's really the whole idea of the functional disconnection. When parents are told that the problem is genetic, that it is something that is not correctable, I've seen the hope just come out of their eyes. And so this book, as much as raising awareness, is also out there to raise hope, to be able to restore hope in parents and families.
So she hasn't dominated a hand yet, and that's kind of important because that tells us that there's definitely some immaturity going on.
So what we do is we educate the parent first and foremost. We explain to them what's actually happening with their child. A lot of what we have to do is actually counteract what they've been told before, which is often wrong, like that your child has no hope, or that your child can't be helped, that your child has a genetic problem and there's nothing we can do about it. So, you know, if somebody tells you that, you kind of give up. And then when you do something, you're not really doing it wholeheartedly because you really don't believe it's going to work. So one of the things we have to do is actually sometimes get the parent reconnected so that they can have hopes and dreams and that they start to actually be happy themselves. A lot of these parents are, you know, really frustrated and angry and in pain. And that creates an incredibly negative environment. They don't mean to create a negative environment, but they're in pain. They can't help it. And so one of the things we have to do is try to get the parent out of pain and reconnect with them. The way we do that is through a really comprehensive evaluation, and that's really what starts it all off. The evaluation really looks at everything, and it's based on mostly standard measurements, meaning things that are accepted in various communities, and we look at these measurements on an age grade basis. So we're looking at a specific skill, let's say push-ups, or let's say it's some sort of strength measurement, and we look at it based on other children their age and their grade and what they should be able to do. And then we're looking at that and saying, you know, is that more of a right brain skill or a left brain skill, and where is this child compared to where they should be? They're at a 4-year-old level and they should be at a 10-year-old level. And then they may have other skills that may be at a 15-year-old level. And that's what stands out. They have this unevenness of skill. So the fact that we look at all of these areas and the fact that we document it functionally, we're not just looking at the symptoms, we're measuring function. And from that, we can then devise a specific individualized program based on those same activities. And then each day they come in, it's another functional measurement, because as they do the activity and as they become successful in that activity, then we move them to a more challenging level. And we'll also incorporate other activities with that so that it grows and continually challenges the child to, again, bring on the most dramatic, rapid changes in the shortest period of time.